Are Zillow leads still worth it? Should you still be paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars to invest into Zillow leads in this current marketplace? Well, the answer to that question is actually a little bit more complicated. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my experience with Zillow, my honest review with it, and if it is worth it in this current real estate marketplace. So now, just to share a little bit of my experience with Zillow leads, I have actually been buying Zillow leads for almost 5 years now, so I actually have a lot of experience when it comes to this. I've purchased over $2,000 worth of leads from the platform. I've probably invested maybe even close to 6 figures or over when it comes to lifetime spend on Zillow, so it has been a major component of my business, and I'm going to give you my honest review on the platform and if it's still worth it in this current marketplace and going forward. And the short answer to that is yes, Zillow can still be a very effective lead generation strategy for your overall real estate business. However, it's not always the most effective way to build your business. So for anyone who's not really entirely familiar with how the process works, I'm talking about the Zillow Premier Agent program. And basically what Zillow will do is that when a consumer is browsing on Zillow, they'll actually go in and request a tour or request information on a property, and Zillow will then connect that consumer to agents who advertise through the Zillow Premier Agent program. Now, these connections are only valid for about 30 days unless you confirm that connection for a further time period, or it will get resold to the next agent that's on the list. And that's one of the things that honestly doesn't make me too crazy about Zillow leads, is that the leads are not exclusive. They're only exclusive for a limited period of time, which means that that lead could have been continue to be sold to other agents after you get them. Because as we all know, it doesn't always take 30 days to convert a lead. A lot of times the lead conversion cycle could be all the way up to 6 months, 12 months, even a year plus. So that does make Zillow a little bit frustrating in that component. And what I'll also say about Zillow is that you want to remember that Zillow is kind of a long-term game, and you have to focus on the volume, because another thing about Zillow is that you are going to get a decent amount of unqualified leads and also leads that are actual not leads, even though you're actually paying a lot of money for them. And the most prevalent example of this for me is when actual real estate agents are calling. It does happen. It's probably about maybe 2 to 3% of the calls that I actually get are real estate agents who don't know how the Zillow program works, which I think they should educate themselves a little more on the process. Sometimes I even get the listing agent of the property inquiring on Zillow, and then they're like, oh, sorry, I just wanted to see what happened when I pressed the button. And the frustrating part about that is that you are paying, maybe $100, $200, $300, $500 for that actual connection, just for it to be another agent. Or a lot of times it's buyers that actually have a real estate agent and they're already committed to that agent, but they're still asking for a tour, maybe thinking that, oh, you could still show them the home, but they can go with their agent, which is just a complete waste of time and a waste of money. But with that being said, you're definitely going to get some of that. You're also going to get some really good hot leads, right? So that doesn't paint the whole picture. So that's why you have to focus on volume when you're doing Zillow. That's just what always worked best for me, is that when I have a larger budget, which I understand is harder and riskier to do, but when I have a higher budget and I have a surplus of leads funneling through, then I could funnel through and filter through a lot of those dead-end leads, and I could focus on the ones that are the highest probability of converting. So when it comes to Zillow, it's not a matter of whether Zillow works, it's more a matter of the agent that's buying the leads themselves, because there are so many agents that actually lose so much money on Zillow, and it's not necessarily their fault. It doesn't mean that they're bad agents, but the Zillow system is actually really hard to convert and make it efficient because it's so reliant on your time as an agent being available on the drop to take that call. And then buyer leads, as in general, they're calling in and they want to see a home at 2 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, within the hour, or maybe the next day, and you just have to make yourself available for whenever they want to see the home. So for agents that, like to schedule their day and say, from this time to this time I'm doing this, and then from this time to this time I'm doing that, and then from this time to this time I'm off, I'm with my family. It's really hard to actually make Zillow work because what I've seen is that Zillow works best when you're always available, right? Because if you're not available to answer that call, they'll actually route it to the next agent. So you need to constantly be available to accept those calls, and then you need to be available to go on the appointments, really on the customer's time, right? It's not really on your time anymore. Now it's all about what time the customer wants. So if you're not available for that customer at the time that they want, then they can find a new agent, they can go somewhere else. It's very fast-paced, fast-moving. And then the other thing is having the right follow-up mechanisms in place, and I'm really not the best in this. It's honestly very frustrating because there's so many times where I call Zillow Leads back and I completely lost the deal, and a lot of times it's due to lack of follow-up. But a lot of times also another thing to consider is that the nature of buyer leads in general is that they're very fluid, right? One day they're with you, the next day they're with someone else. So you're not so on top of them, to almost a level of a stalker. Not really, don't stalk your clients, but if you're not on top of them every day, sending them the new inventory, calling them, communicating, getting them into new homes, then you could see that they're not going to really go out of their way to reach out to you because they don't know you, right? You're just kind of a stranger to them. So you either need to just be super, super aggressive, or just have your way of doing business to where you're like, hey, before I can show you this house, you actually have to come into my office. We have to have a consultation, sign this exclusive agency agreement, and this is how we work. That will help you convert more clients that do agree to meet with you. However, a lot of them will just say, screw that, I'm just gonna call the next agent because I want to get into this home. So it's the way the leads are sourced, and since they have no personal connection to you, it's very challenging to convert them. Generally high demand leads, but hey, at the same time, there's been multiple times where I show a buyer a house and I get them into the first property and they actually end up buying it, right? The first or second property. So there's a flip side to it too, right? There's a lot of positives. However, you just have to ask yourself, is that the kind of real estate schedule that you could see yourself going into? Someone calls you at 10 a.m. and you need to be able to show them a house at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that kind of unpredictability and being around your phone, because that Zillow phone could ring anywhere from 8 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And if you're not answering those calls, then you're actually missing out on those leads. So you need to ask yourself, is that the kind of business that you want to operate? Is that the kind of business that you want to service? And Zillow doesn't have to be a forever thing, but this is how the Zillow program works. Zillow wants to make the product as efficient for the consumer as possible, and they want to remove all the stress, all the steps. They want to make it as seamless as possible for the consumer so that they can go in, request a tour, and the agent's going to get them into the house. You as the agent have to realize that these leads are not necessarily looking for an agent. They're just looking to see a house, right? It's not you that they care about. It's the house that they care about. And then it's all about your skill set on, okay, how am I going to convert this lead into a sale? Am I going to have them come into the office? Am I just going to be super aggressive with them so that, that they continue to look with properties with me? Am I going to be sending them properties every single day when new inventory comes in? Am I going to set up automations for them? It really comes down to the follow-up systems that you put in place, especially the long-term follow-up, because a lot of buyer leads, they start looking and then they stop and then they go back maybe 6 months later. Some leads are even 1 to 2 years out in the process. So I know this now for 5 years since I've been using Zillow. There's been leads that have actually converted after 18 months, as we're going into 24 months plus, and they're actually converting then. Right? So do you have systems in place to actually follow up with all these leads over an extended period of time? Because that will help you make a lot more money, not just on the Zillow leads that want to transact today, but on the Zillow leads that are 6 months out, a year out, 18 plus months out. And you want to be able to capture some of those older leads too, because then that'll keep you busy. You have new leads and you have old leads coming in together. But that's all a lot of work. It's not the simplest thing to take care of, but Zillow ultimately can be very worth it if you make the attempt to actually go out there and convert clients. As of lately, for myself, I've generally seen anywhere from a 5 to 6 times return on my ad spend, meaning that for every $1,000 that I put into Zillow, I usually make about $6,000 back. Now, whether that's a good ROI or not for you, that's up to you to decide. However, that's just kind of where I've seen it. And if you're spending enough money, then for me, a 6 times return, I'm pretty content with that, at least for now. And that's just, I'm not saying that you'll get the same results, because once again, a lot of agents lose money. A lot of agents might have a 2, 3, 4x return. It's really a matter of how consistent you are with the platform. A lot of times my consistency goes down because I get busy and then I don't continue to keep calling the leads. And that's what you have to do when you want to be successful. What I've noticed is when I'm converting the most is that I'm continually calling the leads over and over and over again and just trying to move them one step closer to a closed transaction. Now, we do have to talk about NAR and the new settlement that obviously closed, and now we do need to get agreements from these buyers, which that obviously does complicate things a little bit. I will say that as a result, in my market, the cost of Zillow leads actually went down. I think demand for the buyer business in general is kind of down right now. So I see that as an opportunity for agents to actually get more market share. However, we do need to acknowledge that now compliance adds another layer to converting Zillow leads, right? Because now we have to make sure that we are in compliant with, our showing agreements and having buyers understand that, hey, you need to sign this agreement so we can go into this house, right? I would generally veer more towards saying, non-exclusive at this time. Once again, every agent operates differently, so if you have people coming into your office, you sign an exclusive, they hire you, then that's perfect. But I would say less friction is to go the non-exclusive route, and then maybe see down the road if they want to convert that to an exclusive, or maybe you'll actually close them in a non-exclusive partnership. It's definitely possible. So with that being said, I do think that Zillow leads can still be incredibly effective. They can still be worth it. At the same time, I will say that now there are a lot of new ways to generate business organically, which is more easily convertible. There's also ways that you can grow your own, Facebook ads and do other things to get leads for a much cheaper price, maybe $1 to $10 per lead. But I will say that the Zillow leads do tend on average to be a lot better, and you'll probably convert them at a much higher rate. Maybe I would say about 4 to 10% is doable when it comes to Zillow leads. A lot of these other platforms that offer cheaper leads are usually converting at maybe 1 to 2% per lead. So if you're buying leads for $3 a pop, then 100 leads is $300, and you can close one deal for $300, right? That's a lot better than Zillow, that you might have to pay $200 per lead, and you're gonna have to pay for 10 leads, let's say $2,000 or $4,000 for 20 leads. to convert one. So a lot of these other platforms are definitely more cost efficient. The only problem is that I'd rather have a lower amount of leads and pay more for them that actually convert at a higher rate, because for you to get your 1% conversion on here, that means you have to do all the work on the 99 leads that didn't close, whereas opposed to here, you have to work on maybe 9 or 15 or 20 leads that aren't closing to get to your one closed transaction. So these Zillow leads are generally closer to buying a home than, let's say, your Facebook leads or some of these other platforms that are a lower cost per acquisition, because Zillow is capturing the lead at the time that they're actually ready to look at a home they're inquiring to request a tour, which just means that generally they will have a higher intention. Not always, but a lot of the time, if someone's actually looking to, hey, I want to see this home, they tend to be further along in the process. Now, the other sources could work well, but you have to have even more systems in place to filter through the 99 leads to get to that one lead. If you could develop that infrastructure, then maybe that makes sense. However, I do also have heard that the conversion cycle on these leads can be a little longer, whereas opposed to Zillow, yeah, some leads do take time, but I've literally had leads within the first 2 weeks, they're in contract already, they're pending. So just some things to think about. I'm just sharing my own experience. For me, ultimately, Zillow has proven to be worth it just when I look at what I've made for the return that I've gotten, but it has come at its own cost, which is, always being available on my phone, having to work around demanding scheduling needs for the buyers, and just the kind of the frustration that comes a lot of times with working on the buy side of the business. So that pretty much wraps it up. If you enjoyed this video, then do subscribe to my channel. I've really been trying to grow it lately, so it really means a lot to me. As always, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.